everyone, welcome back to Sulekha Physics classes. It is the most easiest way to learn all the concept of physics through this class. Hope you all are doing well. Today I am going to start one short revision of chapter 14, that is semiconductor devices and digital circuits. This chapter is very important for your board examination. Why? Because it alone consists of 7 marks. So you must revise this chapter. In this chapter also one or two topic is deleted, like Zener diode, their characteristics, how it is used as a voltage regulator. So no need to study Zener diode for board examination for this year only, right? But still other important topics are there in this chapter, like energy bands in conductor, semiconductor and insulator, then semiconductor or PN junction diode, how it is used as a rectifier, then some applications of PN junction diode like LED, photocell, photodiode and solar cell. So I will cover each topic one by one. Let us start quick revision of this chapter 14, semiconductor devices. So first, as the name suggests, semiconductor devices are actually electronic devices. So what is this electronic devices? Electronic devices is any device whose action is based on controlled flow of electrons through it. In all electronic devices, electrons flow only in one direction by controlled manner, right? So main basic advantage of this electronic device is that here electrons flow in a controlled manner through it, and the branch of physics which deals with these electronic devices are called electronics, right? And this electronic devices is the basic building block of all electronic circuits. So you must know about electronic device. These are of two types. First one is vacuum tubes and second one is solid state or semiconductor electronic devices. Now what is this first type? Vacuum tubes. It includes vacuum diode. Diode means 2 electrodes. One is cathode and another one is anode. Triode means 3 electrons. Pentode means 5 electrons. And these electrons are obtained from heated cathode. When you heat the cathode, electrons emitted from the cathode, and that electrons flow in a controlled manner from cathode and to anode. It is collected by anode, another electron. So electrons can flow only in one direction from cathode to anode. So these vacuum tubes are also called vacuum valves because vacuum is required for this type of tubes. So there are some disadvantages of this vacuum tubes, like it is very bulky, large in size, high power consumption, limited life and high power operating voltage. These are different disadvantages. Then after that, in the present time we use solid state or semiconductor electronic devices. What is this? In this semiconductor electronic devices, semiconductor materials are used in this present solid state electronic devices. Right now, here electrons are excited by simple excitation process like heat, light can change the charge carriers, and these charge carriers, here charge carriers, here is electrons. Charge carriers includes both electrons, negative charge and positive charge. I will discuss later on. These charge carriers can flow through in the solid state itself. Here no vacuum is required. So this is one advantage. Because of that one, charge carriers flow through the solid itself. Its size is very small in size. Then here again low power consumption is there, long life and low operating voltage. These are advantages of semiconductor electronic devices. And in present days we basically use in every electronic devices we only use semiconductor electronic devices. So I will discuss these semiconductor electronic devices in detail. Before this one, you must know about semiconductor, what are different types of semiconductor, and then how semiconductors are used in electronic devices, right? So please take a screenshot of this one first. After this we will discuss. Now next is classification of solids on the basis of conductivity. How solids are classified on the basis of electrical conductivity. So on the basis of electrical conductivity, solids are divided into 3 types: conductor, semiconductor and insulator. What is this conductor? Those substances which can conduct electricity, which have high conductivity, right? If conductivity is high, then low resistivity, and for example for this conductor is metal, water. Human body is also a good conductor of electricity, right? Etc. Now next is insulator. What is this insulator? Insulator has low conductivity, does not conduct electricity. It has, if conductivity is low, then high resistivity. Example for this insulator is plastic, wood, glass. All these are poor conductor of electricity. It means insulator. And there is another substance, that is semiconductor. Semi means half conductor. It means its properties are in between conductor and insulator. It means intermediate conductivity. Conductivity is in between conductor and insulator. Resistivity is also in between conductor and insulator. Example for this one is silicon, germanium, argon, etc. Right? Okay. So these are three types of solids on the basis of electrical conductivity. Now next we can also divide solids on the basis of energy band diagram. But what is this energy band? So next is energy bands in solids. You know, now according to Bohr's atomic model, each electron have well defined energy levels in an isolated atom. Suppose there is one atom has a central nucleus and electrons revolves around this nucleus in a fixed definite orbit. It means each electrons have a definite energy levels, and that electrons revolve in that energy levels, right? Inner shells are filled with electrons, right? But outermost shells are filled or unfilled with electrons. Now what happens in a crystal when large number of atoms, right, come close to each other, then their outermost shells also overlap, and hence suppose here two atoms are there. When the two atoms overlap, then the outermost shells also overlap and forms many energy levels which have energy different from the isolated atom. These large number of energy levels, closely spaced energy levels, forms a continuous band, right? And this band is called energy band. Energy band is nothing but large number of closely spaced energy levels. And in these energy levels, this is energy band, right? Some levels are filled with valence electrons, some levels are have no valence electrons, they are unfilled or vacant. So on the basis of that number of electrons, this energy band is also of two types. One is valence band, another one is conduction band. Valence band is highest energy band filled with valence electrons. This one is this one is valence band, right? And upper one is conduction band. So valence band is highest energy level. These are energy levels in the valence band, and highest energy band filled with valence electrons. Highest band is also filled with valence electrons. This band is called valence band. What is conduction band? The lowest unfilled allowed energy band next to valence band. This one is valence band, and next valence band is conduction band. Lowest unfilled allowed energy band. These are allowed energy levels in this band, and these are unfilled, maybe sometimes filled also with one or two free electrons, but this one is unfilled and valence band is filled with valence electrons. But electrons conduct only when they are free. Here in valence band, valence electrons are present, but they are not free. They are bounded to a fixed orbit. When they get some energy by any means, they moves from valence band to conduction band, and then they are ready for conduction. So on the basis of, and this gap between this top of the valence band and bottom of the conduction band is called energy band gap, right? Gap between top of valence band and bottom of conduction band, in which no allowed energy levels for electrons. There are no allowed energy levels in between these gaps. This gap is called energy band gap. And on the basis of this energy band gap, again solids are divided into three types: conductor, semiconductor, and insulator. First take a screenshot of this one, then we'll discuss that one. Next, classification of solids on the basis of energy band diagram. You know energy band diagram, the lowermost filled band is valence band, and next to this valence band is conduction band, and there is a large gap between this top of valence band and conduction band. This gap is called energy band gap. In valence band, large number of free electrons are present. All energy levels are filled. But in conduction band, energy levels may be filled or unfilled depending on the types of materials. So, on the basis of this energy band gap diagram, there are three types of solids again: conductor, semiconductor and insulators. In case of conductor, valence band and conduction band overlap, and due to overlapping, what happens, the valence electrons present in the conduction band easily moves to the conduction band and they are ready for conduction. That's why conductor have good electrical conductivity, right? So in this case, these two, this one is valence band and this one is, they are overlapping, and here band gap is what? 0. Both overlap and no energy gap, Eg is 0, and here large number of free electrons are available in the conduction band due to overlapping of these two bands. Hence, conductor have good electrical conductivity, right? Next, semiconductor. Semiconductor again, valence band and conduction band separated by a small energy band gap that is less than 3 electron volt. They are separated by a small energy gap and that energy gap is less than 3 electron volt. What happens? Here valence band is completely filled and conduction band is partially filled and partially empty. At room temperature, some electrons move from valence band to conduction band. So this conduction band have already some small amount of electrons. So if a small amount of energy less than 3 electron volt is given to the valence electrons of valence band, they can easily move from this valence band to conduction band and they are ready for conduction. So its conductivity is little bit less than this conductor but still have some electricity, right? Electrical conductivity at room temperature. For example, silicon and germanium is a good semiconductor and this silicon has band gap 1.17 electron volt and this germanium has band gap 0.74 electron volt. You must remember these two because in the whole chapter we only use these two types of semiconductor, germanium and silicon. It's very important. And then last one is insulator. This insulator have a large band gap between valence band and conduction band, greater than 3 electron volt. It means this much of energy is required for a valence electron to move from valence band to conduction band, which is not possible at room temperature. Right now, here valence band and conduction band are separated by a large energy gap. It's greater than 3 electron volt. So valence band is completely filled, but conduction band is completely empty, right? Or unfilled in case of insulator. So for example, diamond, energy gap for diamond is 6 electron volt. That's why its energy gap is large, so its electrical conductivity is very low. It has poor conductor of electricity, right? Conductor. So these are difference between conductor, insulator and semiconductors on the basis of energy band diagram. You must remember this one. This question is very important. Distinction between conductor, insulator and semiconductor on the basis of energy band diagram. So you must draw diagrams of these types and write 2 or 3 points. Okay. Take a screenshot of this one. Then we will move to the most important topic, which is discussion of this chapter, that is semiconductor. Our whole focus is on this semiconductor. There are different types of semiconductor, what type of conductivity is there. So, okay. Now, classification of semiconductor. They are actually, semiconductors are classified into 2 types. One is elemental semiconductor, another one is compound semiconductor. Example of elemental semiconductor is germanium, silicon, okay, and when 2 or more elemental semiconductor means that forms compound semiconductor. So we will discuss only elemental semiconductor, right? Silicon and germanium, right? This elemental semiconductor is of 2 types. One is intrinsic and another one is extrinsic semiconductor. So we will discuss one by one. First is intrinsic semiconductor. What is this intrinsic semiconductor? semiconductor in pure form is called intrinsic semiconductor. Those semiconductor which are found in nature, which are exactly pure. So pure semiconductor are called intrinsic semiconductor. Suppose for example silicon, germanium, and both have intrinsic semiconductor have +4 valence electrons in the outermost shell. Now what happens, suppose these are intrinsic semiconductor, there are large number of silicon atoms or germanium atoms are there which has +4 valence electrons, and these silicon atoms forms covalent bond. These are only 4 valence electrons, but this silicon atom want to be stable, so it becomes stable by sharing electrons with the neighboring silicon atoms. So all silicon atoms forms covalent bonds with the neighboring silicon atoms to become stable. Now here there is no free electron for conduction at 0 degree temperature. At 0 temperature it behaves like an insulator. But what happens? Its temperature increases. This is the case for 0 degree Kelvin. Valence electron is completely filled and conduction band is completely empty. Now when temperature increases, what happens? This valence electrons gains some energy and moves to the, this one is conduction band, right? And moves to the conduction band and creates a hole here. Again another electrons moves from valence band to conduction band and creates a hole here. So in case of this, now when temperature is greater than 0 degree Kelvin, some electrons moves from valence band to conduction band and they become free and they are able to conduct electricity, right? Here the valence vacancy created by this valence electron is nothing but called holes. So holes are electron vacancy with positive charge, and in case of this one, the number of electrons moving from valence band is equal to the number of holes created in the valence band. It means number density of electron is equal to number density of holes. They are equal number of electron and holes in case of intrinsic semiconductor. If one electron moves from here to the conduction band, then vacancy is created here. Then this hole is again occupied by another valence electron, then another vacancy is created here. Again this vacancy is filled by another electron, then again one vacancy is created. It means electrons are moving in this direction and holes are moving in this direction. So there are equal number of electrons and holes in case of intrinsic semiconductor. If 2 electrons moves from valence band to conduction band, then there are 2 holes created in the valence band. So you must remember this one. In case of intrinsic semiconductor, number density of electron holes are same, but still its conductivity is not so high. If you want to increase the conductivity of semiconductor, then we will develop another kind of semiconductor that is called extrinsic semiconductor by increasing their conductivity. And how we can increase the conductivity of this pure semiconductor? By the process of doping, and that doping is nothing but mixing of impurity atoms to a pure semiconductor, and that process is called doping. So by doping process we can create extrinsic semiconductor from intrinsic semiconductor to increase the conductivity. So next we will discuss extrinsic semiconductor. Please take a screenshot of this one. Now next topic is extrinsic semiconductor, but before extrinsic semiconductor you must note one thing in case of intrinsic semiconductor. In intrinsic semiconductor both charge carriers, electrons and holes are present in equal number. So total current in case of intrinsic semiconductor is current due to electron plus current due to hole. You must remember this formula, right? Now next one, extrinsic semiconductor. You know at 0 degree Kelvin in case of intrinsic semiconductor its conductivity is 0. But if you increase the temperature, some electron jumps from valence band to conduction band and some conductivity is there, right? So to increase the conductivity of an intrinsic semiconductor, we have to dope pure semiconductor with some suitable impurity atom, right? You know, in case of semiconductor, outermost shell, how many electrons? like silicon, germanium, in outermost shell plus 4 valence electrons are present. So if you add impurity to this pure semiconductor, impurity is near about this plus 4 valence electrons. So impurity may be plus 3 or plus 4 valence electron atoms, right? Sorry, plus 5. And plus 3 valence electron atoms are called trivalent impurity atom. And plus 5 valence electron atoms are called pentavalent impurity atoms. So to increase the conductivity of intrinsic semiconductor, that semiconductor is doped with some suitable impurity atom. And this process of adding impurity to a pure semiconductor is called doping. And the impurity atom which is added to a pure semiconductor to form extrinsic, or you can say impure semiconductor, is called dopant. Impurity atoms is called dopant. You must know about these terms, what is doping, what is dopant, right? So on the basis of types of impurity atoms added to a pure semiconductor, this extrinsic semiconductor are of two types. One is N-type and another one is P-type. What is this N-type semiconductor? I will discuss in detail. If plus 5 valence electron impurity atoms, it means pentavalent impurity atom, is added to a pure semiconductor, then the resultant extrinsic semiconductor is called N-type. And if trivalent, it means plus 3 valence electron atoms are added to a pure semiconductor, then the extrinsic semiconductor formed is called P-type semiconductor, right? So we will discuss both these types of semiconductor one by one in detail with energy band diagram also. Please take a screenshot of this one first. Now, N-type semiconductor. What is this N-type semiconductor? When a pentavalent impurity means those atoms which have plus 5 valence electrons in the outermost shell. It means those elements which are present in 5th group of the periodic table. And that pentavalent impurity atom is added to a pure semiconductor, then the resultant semiconductor formed is N-type, right? So it is obtained by adding pentavalent impurity atom to a pure semiconductor. Then N-type semiconductor is formed. Now what happens? Let us see here. This one is pure silicon atom, pure semiconductor, which has plus 4 valence electrons in the outermost shell. It means tetravalent atom, right? And if you add one, this one is plus 5. It means this one is pentavalent impurity atom, which has plus 5 valence electrons in the outermost shell. 1, 2, 3, 4, and one is here, right? 4 valence electrons of the impurity atom forms covalent bond with the neighboring 4 pure semiconductor, right? But this 5th one electron is free, and this free electron is donated by plus 5 atom, right? And this impurity atom donates one extra free electron, so that's why it is also called donor atom. Pentavalent impurity atom is called donor atom, like phosphorus, arsenic. Why it is called donor atom? Because it donates one extra electron for conduction. So here what happens? At room temperature, extra free electrons are present below the conduction band. It is ready for conduction, and also some thermally generated electrons moves from valence. These valence electrons are free at room temperature, right? At temperature greater than 0 degree Kelvin. So some electrons moves from valence band to conduction band, and here hole is created, right? So this thermally generated electrons are also present, and extra free electrons are also present due to the impurity atom. So here total number of free electrons is greater than number of holes. So in this case, majority charge carrier is electron and minority charge carrier is hole. That's why it is called N-type semiconductor, because majority charge carrier is electron are negatively charged. So it is called N-type semiconductor. In this case, number density of electron is greater than number density of hole. And if you want to draw the energy band diagram of this N-type semiconductor, semiconductor. So you just draw donor energy level below the conduction band, right? This is donor energy level, energy band diagram for N-type semiconductor. So donor energy level just lie below the conduction band. These are the key points for N-type semiconductor. You must revise each and every point is important, right? You must draw the diagram like this one. One impurity atom is added here, and not only one impurity atom, actually impurity atom is added in very small amount, ppm, parts per million. It means if 1 million tetravalent atoms are there, then you have to add 1 part of impurity atom. So there are large number of free electrons due to this impurity atom. It donates extra electrons, that's why it is called donor atom. And also there are some thermally generated electrons, so total number of electrons is greater than total number of holes in case of N-type semiconductor. Okay, please take a screenshot of this one. Now next is p-type semiconductor. What is this p-type semiconductor? When a trivalent impurity atom is added to a pure semiconductor, then resultant semiconductor is called p-type semiconductor. When trivalent impurity atom added to a pure semiconductor. Trivalent impurity atom means those atoms which have +3 valence electrons in the outermost shell, or you can say those elements which are present in +3 group of the third group of the periodic table, right? Here what happens, suppose these are pure semiconductor, +4 valence electrons in the outermost shell, and one trivalent impurity atom which has 3 valence electrons in the outermost shell are added to this pure semiconductor. So here the 3 valence electrons form covalent bond with the neighboring 3 valence electrons of the pure semiconductor. Okay, but the fourth one is vacant, and this vacant is nothing but it is called hole. It carries positive charge. Positive charge. So free hole is here in case of this trivalent impurity, and this free hole is ready to accept valence electrons from any of the neighboring atoms. Suppose this electrons moves and takes the place of this holes. So again this becomes here electrons, it forms covalent bond, here hole is created. Again this hole, this place is taken by another electron, right? It moves toward this side, and again one hole is created. So hole is created in this way, and in this case p-type semiconductor at room temperature more number of holes are present which accepts electrons, so these are called acceptor atom also, and these holes are present above the valence band. And also at room temperature at T greater than 0, some thermally generated electron pairs are also there. So here when electron moves from valence band to conduction band, electrons comes here and valence band is left here, holes are created here. So in case of this p-type semiconductor, number of holes is greater than number of electrons. Right now here majority charge carriers are holes and minority charge carriers are electrons, right? And in this case number of holes is greater than number of electrons. These trivalent impurity atoms are also called acceptor atom because it accepts extra electron for conduction, right? Like aluminium, gallium. And this acceptor energy level lies just above the valence band. Here energy level, this is energy band diagram, energy level, acceptor energy level is present above the valence band, right? And at equilibrium, any type of semiconductor, either intrinsic or extrinsic, Ne into NH is equal to Ni square. This formula is also very important. So in this way, these are the key points for p-type semiconductor. You explain like this one, okay? And you draw the diagram for that one, how p-type semiconductor is formed by adding trivalent impurities and how energy band diagram is drawn. Okay, please take a screenshot of this one. Then we will move to the next topic, p-n junction formation. Now p-n junction formation and its working, or you can say p-n junction diode. This topic is also very important, right? How p-n junction formation takes place. So what happens in this case, when p and n-type semiconductor are connected back to back, they are not connected directly, right? They are connected back to back. Then two processes occurs during formation of p-n junction. What are the two processes? diffusion and drift. It's very important point, you must note down. For a 1 marks question it may come, what are the two processes involved during formation of p-n junction? Then you have to write diffusion and drift. What is this diffusion and drift? Okay, you know, in n-type semiconductor, majority charge carrier is what? Electron. In n-type semiconductor, majority charge carrier is electron, and in p-type semiconductor, majority charge carrier is hole, right? So due to concentration gradient along the two sides of the junction p and n type, what happens? There is diffusion of electrons from n side and diffusion of holes from p side. Hole starts diffuse towards from p side to n side, and electron starts diffuse from n side to p side. This diffusion occurs due to concentration gradient on the two sides of the junction, right? And this diffusion of majority charge carriers sets up some current, and that current is called diffusion current, and direction is from p to n, right? So what happens when these majority carriers starts moving towards the junction? It leaves behind immobile charge carrier. Suppose one hole is moving from this side to near the junction, it leaves behind what? Negative charge. If electron moves from n side towards the junction, it leaves behind what? Positive charge. So these negative charge and positive charge near the junction are immobile, right? So the small region near the junction, this is a small region near the junction where majority charge carriers neutralize each other. There are no majority charge carriers present near this small region, only immobile charge carriers are present near the junction. This region is called depletion region or depletion layer. Why it is called depletion? Because it is depleted from majority charge carriers. It has only immobile charge carriers which are not responsible for conduction, right? That's why it is called depletion layer. Now due to this negative accumulation of this negative charge near p junction and positive charge near n junction, these are negative charge, right now, near the p side, and positive charge near the n side sets up potential difference across the junction. This potential difference is called potential barrier. Why it is called potential barrier? Because it acts as a barrier between further diffusion of majority carriers near the junction. You know na, electrons always move opposite to the direction of electric field. Here direction of electric field is this one, n to p na. So how electrons moves from this n side to p side? No na, this stops further diffusion of electron. So this potential difference created near the junction acts as a potential barrier. Now to cross these holes to the junction, it must have this much of potential difference, potential barrier. Otherwise the holes from p side and electrons from n side are not able to cross the junction, right? Now what happened? Due to this potential barrier, electric field is set up in this diffusion region, and due to this electric field, minority carrier starts drifting. Here minority carrier is what? Electron, right now? Minority carrier is electron, negative charge. Here minority carrier is hole. Now due to this electric field setup, from n side hole starts moving, and from p side electron starts moving, right? And this sets up current. This process is actually called drifting. First diffusion takes place. Due to diffusion, potential barrier is set up, and due to that potential barrier, drifting of minority carriers starts, and this constitutes drift current. And direction of drift current is what? From n to p. So you have to write everything. You have to draw neat and clean diagram. First you write what is diffusion, from where diffusion takes place, which majority charge carriers, then due to that diffusion potential barrier is set up across the junction, and due to this potential barrier drifting of minority carriers. So diffusion current is due to what? Diffusion current is due to majority charge carriers, right? And drift current is due to minority charge carriers, right? direction of this drift current is from N to P and direction of this diffusion current is from P to N. What is the symbol for this PN junction diode? Symbol of this PN junction diode is like this one. This is the symbol for PN junction diode. This side represents P and this pointed end represents N, and this is the symbol for PN junction diode. So you have to write all these key points, what happens during PN junction formation and what are different regions formed during this one. Okay, please take a screenshot of this one. Then we will move to the next topic. Now, biasing of a diode. What is this biasing? Biasing means diode is connected to an external voltage, and you know external voltage means it is connected to a cell or battery, and a cell or battery has two terminals, positive and negative. So how you connect positive and negative to terminal to the diode? It is also of two types. Biasing is of two types, right? So application of external voltage across a diode is called biasing. It is of two kinds: forward biasing and reverse biasing. Now, what is this forward biasing and reverse biasing? First, I will discuss forward biasing. Forward biasing means if positive terminal of this battery, external battery, is connected to P side and negative terminal of the battery is connected to N side, then this type of biasing is called forward biasing. Now, what is the advantage of this type of biasing? You know, barrier potential is in this direction right now, and in this sets of internal field which is also in this direction, and this external voltage is in this direction. External field is also in this direction. It means this external field is opposite direction of internal field. So this potential barrier is in opposite direction to the applied potential difference. Right now, what happens? These holes in the P side are repelled by this positive terminal of the battery, and electrons in the N side are repelled by this negative terminal of the battery, and electron starts moving towards the junction and rest hole starts moving towards the junction. Now near the junction, these holes recombine with this negative charge carrier, drift electron, right? This side drift electron is there, and this electron from N side starts recombine with this positive charge. This side, near the junction, this side is positive charge, this side negative charge. Now this hole recombine with this drift electron, and this electron recombine with this drift hole, right? And these nullify each other. Now due to what? The potential barrier decreases, and when you increase the external voltage, when this exceeds barrier voltage, then what happens? Width of depletion region decreases, and due to decrease in width of this depletion region, it offers low resistance, and due to this low resistance, when voltage exceeds VV, the majority charge carriers easily cross the junction. When this depletion region when this depletion voltage exceeds when this V exceeds barrier voltage, then what happens? These majority charge carriers easily cross across the junction and forms current. That current is called forward current. This is in symbol form. This one is PN junction diode. It is connected to positive terminal, it is connected to negative terminal, and the key points of this forward biasing is here. Potential barrier decreases. Right now, a potential barrier decreases means width of the depletion region also decreases, and due to this decrease in width of the depletion layer, resistance also decreases. And what happens at one time when the external voltage exceeds the barrier voltage, the majority charge carriers cross the junction and forms current, that is called forward current. I hope it's clear to all of you. Please take a screenshot of this. Next is reverse biasing. Reverse biasing is opposite to that of forward biasing. In this biasing, this negative terminal of the battery is connected to P side and positive terminal of the battery is connected to N side. Now due to this connection, what happens? These holes are attracted towards the negative terminal and these electrons in the N side are attracted towards the positive terminal. Hence, due to this movement of majority charge carrier towards the terminals of the battery, the width of the depletion layer increases, right? So effective potential barrier increases and hence width of the depletion layer also increases. So it offers very high resistance. It means no current flows through the circuit in case of reverse biasing, but still at room temperature there are some minority carriers, right? And these minority carriers, due to this reverse biasing, minority carrier in this P is what? Electrons. It pushes towards the junction, and here minority carrier is hole. It pushes towards the junction due to this reverse biasing, and some small amount of current flows due to these minority carriers, and that current is called reverse current. But you know, concentration of majority carrier is always greater than concentration of minority carriers. So this reverse current is very small because it is produced due to movement of drifting of minority carriers. So forward current is always greater than reverse current. Then reverse current is due to what? Minority carrier, and this forward current is due to majority carriers, and concentration of majority carrier is more than that of minority carriers. So forward current is always greater than reverse current, right? Please take a screenshot of this one. Now VI characteristics of diode. You know forward biasing, you know reverse biasing, and current only flows in forward biasing, not in reverse biasing. In reverse biasing, only a small amount of current flows. So to draw the VI characteristics, one voltmeter is connected in parallel with the diode and ammeter is connected in series with the diode. In case of forward biasing, positive terminal is connected to P side and negative terminal is connected to N side, right? Reverse biasing, negative terminal of the battery is connected to P side and positive terminal is connected to N side. Here microammeter is connected to measure, milliammeter, M for milli. Milliammeter is connected in series with the diode to measure current. And here microammeter is connected. Micro range, why? Because this current is very small than this forward current, right? Now what happens initially when you increase the voltage, current does not increase, but after a certain point, certain voltage, current starts increasing, and that minimum voltage at which the current starts flowing in the circuit or increasing in the circuit is called cut-in voltage or threshold voltage. It is that voltage at which the current increases very rapidly, right? This current is called forward bias. So this is the graph for forward bias, okay? And current is in milliampere. Now in reverse biasing, if you increase the reverse voltage, initially very small amount of reverse saturation current flows due to minority carriers, right? But after a certain voltage, current increases very rapidly, very suddenly, and that voltage breakdown, that point is called breakdown voltage, at which the current increases very sharply, right? And current is in microampere. This current is always lesser than forward current. I forward is always greater than I reverse. So this is the VI characteristics of diode. You must know what is forward biasing, what is reverse biasing. You know how to draw this graph. This graph is also very important. It may come in 1 or 2 marks question. For long questions also draw VI characteristics of diode. So in forward biasing, draw like this one. In reverse biasing, draw like this one. Okay. So please take a screenshot of this one. After this, we will discuss some applications of diode, and in your syllabus, it is first rectifier. Now, next one is junction diode as a rectifier. This is one application of PN junction diode. How junction diode can be used as a rectifier. So, first you must know what is this rectifier. Actually, rectifier is a device which is used to convert alternating current into direct current. Alternating current means bidirectional current into unidirectional current, and for that purpose PN junction diode is used. What is the basic principle of this rectifier? When diode is in forward bias, then what happens? Resistance is very small and current flows through it. But when the diode is in reverse biased, then resistance is very high and no current flows through it. This property of diode is used for unidirectional flow of current. So, also rectifier is of two types. One is half wave rectifier and another one is full wave rectifier. First I will discuss half wave rectifier, then after that full wave rectifier. So, first one is half wave rectifier. This is a circuit diagram for half wave rectifier. In this circuit diagram, there is a transformer, diode and load resistance. Primary of the transformer is connected to input AC supply and secondary of the transformer is connected in series with the diode and load resistance, right? Now, what is the working of this transformer? So, this is input AC, right? Now, this side voltage at A is this point and this one is output. What you get output due to this diode used in the circuit, and here is voltage across RL, and this output voltage is connected to your any equipments like bulb, tube light, whatever you want DC current, right? Okay, so how it works? Now during positive half cycle, this one is positive half cycle of input AC. So during this positive half cycle, if this one is positive half cycle, this end A becomes, due to mutual induction, you know how current is and voltage is induced, EMF induced, okay. So during positive half cycle, this end becomes positive, and if this end becomes positive, it means this diode is in forward bias, and during forward bias, you know current flows through it due to it offers very low resistance. So you get output across the load resistance RL, voltage across RL, you get like output like this one, right? Now during negative half cycle, what happens? During negative half cycle, this end A becomes negative. So if this end becomes negative, this side becomes positive, it means diode is in reverse bias. It offers very high resistance, so no current flows through the load resistance during negative half cycle, right? Again, next positive half cycle, again this diode is forward bias and current flows through, you get an output. Again during next negative half cycle, this one is reverse bias, no current flows through the load resistance. In this way, you get output only during the positive half cycle. During negative half cycle, no output is there. That's why it is called half wave rectifier. So you must know how to draw circuit diagram of half wave rectifier. You must write two lines. During positive half cycle, what happens? During negative half cycle, what happens? And you draw input output waveforms for this half wave rectifier. Okay, hope you understood. Please take a screenshot of this one. Then we'll discuss full wave rectifier. Now, after half wave rectifier, second one is full wave rectifier. Full wave rectifier means we get output during both half cycles of the input AC. What is the circuit diagram for this one? Again, here there is a transformer. Here two diodes are used, load resistance, right? Primary of this transformer, this one is primary, is connected to input AC, and secondary of this transformer is connected to P ends of both the diodes. This one is P and this one is P, right? Again, secondary of this transformer is tapped at its center, and it is connected to, one end is connected to load resistance RL, and the end is connected to output of this negative end of both the diodes. Now what happens? These are input output waveforms. During positive half cycle, this end A becomes positive and this end B becomes negative. So if this diode D1 becomes forward bias and D2 becomes reverse bias. During positive half cycle, this diode D1 becomes forward bias and D2 becomes reverse bias, right now, during positive half cycle. Okay, then only current flows in forward bias, so current only flows through D1 diode during positive half cycle. So this is output at load resistance RL, right? Now next, during negative half cycle. During negative half cycle, what happens? This end A becomes negative and this end B becomes positive, right? So here this end A becomes negative and this end A becomes positive. Now this time diode D2 becomes forward bias and D1 becomes reverse bias. So current only flows through D2 during negative half cycle, right? In the same way, motion is repeated, right? Next positive half cycle, again diode D1 becomes forward bias and current only flows through D2. Then next negative half cycle through D2. In this way, we get output in both the cycles, positive and negative half cycles, due to the two diodes. That's why it is called full wave rectifier. And output is found in the same direction. So we get unidirectional current of voltage. It means how this full wave rectifier converts in AC input into DC output. So in this way you draw the circuit diagram, input output waveform, just line two lines. During positive half cycle, what happens? During negative half cycle, what happens? You get full marks. Okay, hope you understood. Please take a screenshot of this one fast. Now last topic is optoelectronic device. What is this optoelectronic device? It is a semiconductor diode in which carriers are generated by photons. Photons means light. Due to light falling on the PN junction diode, carriers are generated. It can be classified as photodiode, light emitting diode, solar cells. One more, Zener diode is also, but for this year it is not in the syllabus. It is deleted from your course, right? So I will discuss only these three types of optoelectronic device. First one is photodiode. What is this photodiode? It is a special type of junction diode used for detecting optical signals. In 1 marks questions, this sentence is very important. It may generally ask in 1 marks question which type of semiconductor diode is used for detecting optical signals. Then you have to write photodiode. It is always operated in reverse bias condition. It means P type of the diode is connected to N negative of the battery and N type is connected to positive terminal of the battery. And there is one transparent window near the junction which this transparent window allow light to fall on it. There is a transparent window near the junction so that light of suitable frequency falls on it, right? So this is the circuit diagram. You connect one load resistance here and this one is microammeter because it is operated in reverse bias condition. And this one is symbol for this photodiode. PN and light falls on it. So this one is just symbol, right? Now how it works. When light of suitable frequency E, this E is equal to h nu greater than band gap, right? The EG falls on depletion region, then what happens? Near the depletion region, electron-holes pair are generated due to the breaking of covalent bond, and due to the electric field near the junction, these electron and holes are drifted along the direction of electric field. It means electron moves towards N side and hole moves towards P side due to this internal junction field, right? And when external, when it is connected to external load, then current starts flowing through the circuit. That current is called photocurrent and the EMF generated is called photovoltage, right? So hope just there are 2 or 3 key points which you have to remember. Just draw circuit diagram, symbol, and you write it is operated in reverse bias condition. This point is also very important. And when energy greater than band gap falls on this depletion region, then electron holes pair are generated due to breaking of covalent bonds, and due to this junction field electron moves towards n side and hole moves towards p side, and due to reverse biasing, all holes are attracted towards this negative terminal and all electrons are attracted towards this positive terminal. When you connect one load in the external circuit, then you find that current starts flowing through this load resistance, which is measured in microammeter, right? If you draw a graph for VI characteristics of this photodiode, here it operates in reverse bias condition, so negative voltage, this side plus V and this side minus V. If the voltage increases, then current also increases, and after that it reaches to saturation value. Again, if intensity of light increases, then again saturation point increases. When intensity of light again increases, saturation point again increases. It means this VI characteristics current depends on intensity of light. If intensity is greater, I3 greater than I2 greater, then saturation current is also increasing when the intensity increases. Also, with the increase of reverse bias, also current increases. So this is VI characteristics of photodiode. Just to remember this one, take a screenshot of this one. Now, second one is light emitting diode. What is this light emitting diode? It is a heavily doped PN junction diode and it operates under forward bias. You must remember this one, in which biasing it operates. Photodiode operates under reverse bias, but this light emitting diode operates under forward bias and it converts electrical energy into light energy. This is a symbol for light emitting diode. It emits light of various wavelengths of different colors. Working. When a PN junction is forward biased, now what happens? When a PN junction is forward biased, then electrons starts moving from N to P side and holes starts moving from P to N side. Now near the junction, there are excess of minority carriers near the junction which recombines with the majority carriers, and light energy is given out in the form of heat. So you must remember these one or two key points are there. Due to forward biasing, electron moves from N to P side and holes moves from P to N side, and there are because it is heavily doped, there are excess minority carriers near the junction which recombines with these majority carriers and light energy is given out, right? The color of light depends upon the types of materials used in making the semiconductor. Which type of material is used to make the semiconductor, according to that one, lights of different colors are emitted. For example, gallium arsenic, it emits infrared radiation. Gallium phosphorus, it emits red or green colored light. And according to that one, VI characteristics of this light emitting diode is, it is operating under forward bias. So these are the graphs for different colors of light, right? So you must remember one or two key points. It generally comes in short notes, okay? Now there are some advantages of LED also. Advantages of LED over this incandescent lamp. What is the advantage? It consumes less power. This one is also important for 1 marks 2 question, okay? And it operates under low operating voltage. These are advantages of LED. Low operating voltage. Then one more, it has long life, okay? So there are different advantages of this LED. You must remember 2 or 3 points. Please take a screenshot of this one. Now, last type of optoelectronic device is solar cell, number 3. Okay, what is this solar cell? It is a device which converts solar energy into electrical energy. It consists of again a PN junction diode, right? Top surface is N and bottom surface is P. Top surface is connected with metallized finger electrodes and it acts as top surface, and this is polished and this acts as back contact, right? Now some space is leaving here so that light enters through this top surface. When lights of suitable frequency falls on this top surface, then what happens? Electron hole pair generation takes place near the junction when E is greater than band gap. Right now, when this E equal to h nu is greater than band gap energy, then generation of electron hole pairs takes place near the junction, and due to junction field here, again separation of electron hole pair takes place. Electron move towards n side and holes move towards p side, and these electrons and holes are collected by top surface and back contact. P side becomes positive and n sides become negative. Right now, collection of electrons and holes by front and back surface, P side becomes positive and N side becomes negative, giving rise to a voltage across the junction. When external resistance is connected, photocurrent flows through it, and if intensity of light increases, then current also increases through the circuit. So hope you understood. Just there are three processes takes place in this one. First one is generation of electron hole pair. Then after that, due to electric field, separation of electron holes pair takes place, and then third process is collection of electrons and holes by front and back surface. Due to this, potential difference is created, and if it's connected to external load, photocurrent flows through the circuit. This is VI characteristics of this solar cell. Like this one is open circuit voltage, this one is short circuit current. Just remember this one, it may come in 1 marks question. So all these three types of optoelectronic device we have discussed, and these all three types, photodiode, LED and solar cell, all three comes in short notes only for 2 or 3 marks. So you must revise in which one, which biasing is used, what is that, you must know the definition, then uses, circuit diagram, just only. Okay. So please take a screenshot of this one. With this, I am going to end the class. Hope you like this one short video of chapter 14. Please like, share and subscribe my channel so that I will make one short revision for other chapters also. So students, keep revising and stay tuned with this channel. Thank you.